Welcome everyone to this week's edition of the Commercial Real Estate 101 Meetup Group. For those of you guys who are tuning in for the first time, we actually started this group, back in 2020, kind of in response to COVID, to try to become kind of an online medium for people who are looking to learn about commercial real estate topics. And ever since then, we've had people come on from a variety of different parts of the business, all across the country. And, we have the honor today of having a friend of mine locally, Will Bockoven, who's a commercial real estate broker, has been one for many years, and also a developer as well. And so in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the commercial real estate development process. So hopefully you guys are going to gain some value from this. But Will, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. First, congrats. You're CCIM now. So there's a new sheriff down. I guess it's official. That's fantastic. My name is Will Bockoven. I'm a native Louisvillian. I'm from an old family here. And it's like Raphael said, I'm a broker. I wear a lot of different hats. I'm a broker, property manager. You can call me a developer, but it's everything real estate. Investor as well. We invest in shopping centers and mixed use and all kinds of things. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and just let me know how I can help.
Oh, absolutely. No, and obviously we appreciate your time, because I know you guys got a lot going on. We had kind of talked offline about some of the stuff that you've been working on, which is pretty cool. But just to start out, I think one of the things we'd like to learn is just a little bit more about you and your background. So if you don't mind kind of sharing your backstory, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, no problem. I won't give you the long, boring version. I'll give you the professional. But anyways, raised in Louisville, Kentucky. Graduated high school in 94, so I'm probably a little bit older than a lot of the people you have on. But my background initially was I was interested in finance, wealth management. And I was lucky enough to get a job in Houston, Texas, at a firm called Morgan Stanley. And then later Merrill Lynch and a couple of boutique firms. But I've always been interested in just investments in general. And I think that has really played a big role in real estate, because a lot of people look at real estate as a user. I see it as an investment. So called investment sales now. Now there's a whole industry built towards that. But background was wealth management for a while, and our family had a construction company. I was the baby in the family by a pretty good margin. They sold the company in the early 90s, and they were left with real estate, mostly industrial properties, one of them which is the property where the ballpark downtown Slugger Field is built. So we still own a small sliver of that. But that is what got me interested in commercial real estate, to learn about management and tenants, and got my experience in that through hands-on. And I mean, not collecting rent. We're talking about painting, mowing grass, picking up trash, those types of things. Learned from the ground up. And one thing led to another, and decided, well, the best way to learn about this business is to become a broker, which I did. And I was fortunate to work for a very small regional firm here in town, and eventually started my own. Fast forward to right before COVID, started putting together investment partnerships. I have a business partner as well. The partnerships were, we would essentially just get a group of people together, and we would group purchase a piece of property, shopping center, office building, manage it, and just go from there. So that's kind of the backstory. And there's some, there's some filling in between.
Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate you sharing your background, because it does help provide context, because you're right. I mean, there's certain individuals, a lot of business owners, especially if you're representing, owner users, they look at real estate as a place to occupy their business. But there is also, the component of the investment of real estate. And I remember in CCIM, they kind of teach about the continuum of investments, being like the bonds or the quote unquote, the more stable, and then comes real estate, and then comes stocks. And so it's kind of interesting to hear your take on that. And I'm sure it's provided you unique insights as you started your journey, although you had some experience from a familial standpoint. I mean, getting into the brokerage space and really operating it locally has, I'm sure you've been able to apply some of those lessons from the financial front to better your
the financial metrics, return on investment, return on equity, and CCIM, discount cash flows. And I mean, there's just a ton of different ways to measure real estate return. But yeah, I specifically work with people that use real estate as an investment vehicle. They want a return on it, and that's about it. I mean, there's maybe a few here and there that have a different use for it, but that's investment sales all the way.
100%. So one thing I'm curious about is, obviously development is is a vertical within the broader real estate landscape. I'm kind of curious as to why you chose to kind of dive into that pond, because it is, although it is one of those, verticals that everyone, aspires to, it's very, quote unquote sexy. It also has a lot of, it's the riskiest by far. I mean, there's no question that, when you take on development projects, there's a lot of moving parts that you have to consider, and, a lot of variables that can be outside of your control that can affect the project timeline and ultimately the profitability of the project. So one of the things I'm kind of curious about is, what was the impetus for saying, okay, let me try to, take down or work on a development project?
Sure. And let me just claim this by saying, I think I like to be very thorough, very thoroughly transparent. There are a lot of developers out there that are very buttoned up. They have a large staff. They have it down to a science. They have architects and engineers, and they have long-standing relationships. I'm none of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So while I have good real estate background experience, I've transacted virtually every asset class. I am a newbie developer, and I don't pretend to be anything else. So definitely, you got to take that into perspective. So what made me get interested in it? It really was my clients. We had an owner group that was interested in looking at adaptive reuse. They were looking at an office building, and we thought it was such a fantastic purchase price and entry price that we thought, well, I think there's room here. This is a development project. Is this something that would be it's interesting to the group? They replied yes. And so we started looking at it as a development deal versus just stabilizing it with other office tenants. It was vacant at the time. So that's really where it came about. It wasn't planned. It was just an opportunity that came along. I've always believed that development is where you make equity. That's where you make all the money. It's construction turns into equity on the building. I mean, that's my belief. Now, others have a different belief system on it, but for me, it was just opportunity. It just came along. Somebody asked, and I thought, well, let's go give it a try.
That's awesome. So, kind of going to that opportunity, like, I guess, what were some of the things you looked at some of those early opportunities to say, okay, this is going to be a potentially a good development project? So do you have some criteria that you were kind of, going
Absolutely.
off of? Yeah.
It's really important to mention too, is that a developer or an entrepreneur, they'll have a great idea in their mind. They'll have this concept that they think is great, but you got to stress test it with the marketplace. You have to go in the marketplace and think, who is going to buy this product? And whether it's a business, and especially real estate. So we started with a survey and just the surrounding area, looking around the demographics, what was currently the current stock. And for us, it was downtown residential and downtown Airbnb. So we took a survey, we looked at the prices, we looked at all the transaction costs, we took a look at the demographics, all the normal metrics you use in real estate, daytime population, Airbnb data, asked property managers, other investors as well. There's a variety of ways to do that. And once we determined, okay, we think we have a price point that we can build a product that would return a good investment, we moved forward from there. So a lot of research. This is a great chock full of information, is every city has a comprehensive plan. Louisville has one, Lexington has one. It's usually somewhere on a government database or website. You can research it, read it, and get a lot of great information.
Yeah. So for those of you guys who are not familiar with the comprehensive plan, typically cities create these plans to kind of stipulate what type of projects or ideas they have for the city going forward. So they'll have future plans of where they want to see the certain things. And I'm assuming in your case with the comprehensive plan that you had reviewed, you'd noticed that this was maybe an area where the city was really pushing to try to revitalize or whatever else. Can you kind of give some impotence or thoughts on that?
So, it's a good balance of what other developers are doing, what I call riding coattails, and just seeing the path of progress. For our specific site, it was in Lexington and it was on Main Street. A Main Street address is usually a pretty good address in almost every city. I mean, unless it's completely dead, something's going on Main Street. So Main Street had a number of developments in Lexington from both sides, and you could see it. That with the unveiling of all the new, amenities, and Rupp Arena in downtown Lexington is a huge moneymaker for the city. we just thought everything looked like it was a go. So I guess that answers your question.
No, for sure. No, I appreciate the context there. And you had mentioned, obviously the demographics and seeing what is available in the marketplace and, what things are going for. I mean, that's, I'm sure, where your brokerage experience was invaluable because, I can tell you pretty accurately, like certain areas of town, what the average lease rates are, what you can expect to get just through transacting in the market for several years. And so I think as a broker, you have unique insights that maybe the general populace may or may not have. So, I think that's definitely something is in your tool belt if you are a broker as you're analyzing some of these opportunities in the marketplace.
It's a lot of talking to with other brokers.
Mhm.
It's chatting with people, just kind of getting word on the street. So it's an art and a science. There's a little bit of both. And I'll be honest, there's some speculation to it,
Mhm. Oh, sure.
The other thing to consider too that's you really can't control is the marketplace. We could start this project in 1 year, and by the time we're done, the marketplace could be a little different, sometimes completely different. So you have to have enough of a cushion to make sure your product's going to be attractive to the end user. I mean, if it's not, it's a game. You definitely have to balance it out.
Absolutely. And for those of you guys who haven't taken any CCIM courses, I highly encourage you guys to take it, especially 102 that talks about a lot of this stuff where it talks about, available inventory, you can kind of get an idea of, what type of developments are coming to on market. So what's in the pipeline as far as development's concerned, and then what's the average absorption rate for different product. And so it becomes more of an analytical process when you're analyzing these opportunities because it's like, okay, well, if the available inventory is 700,000 square feet and there's 100,000 coming down the pipeline, but the demand based on all these metrics is 850,000 square feet, there's a delta that you can play with, right? So
Another thing to consider too is a small developer versus a big developer, a big corporation, a REIT or whatnot. A REIT can hold its breath, is what I like to, and they cannot generate any cash flow for years. That fits into their whole business model. For a smaller group like us, we want it to cash flow as soon as possible. But there is a period of time where it's not just the construction, it's stabilization. How long does it take before you can be profitable? So that's a whole nother conversation. That's a deep dive in the actual development process, but something to consider.
Absolutely. So the next piece of it obviously is, you see an opportunity and now it's the funding the opportunity, right? And you had mentioned you had brought a partnership group together. What was that process like? And, from there, I guess, how did you structure it so that, all parties were represented appropriately?
Well, for us, we all knew each other pretty well. Now, there's different vehicles that you can use to put together partnerships. They can range from private equity funds to REITs, on the big side to institutional side, to what I call the country club, which is just a bunch of guys getting together or women and putting their money together and then buying something. For us, it was pretty standard. We put together a limited liability company. We have an operating agreement. But even with that said, beyond with the contracts, you have to have really good relationships with the people that you're doing business with. You have to manage expectations. And, we weren't perfect. So, but you have to really work closely to manage expectations. You've got to work with three parties: your general contractor, your lender, and your partners. So really it's a combination of all three. And really, if you think about it, your lender is really your partner as well. Even though they're not an investor partner, they're still a partner. So you have to manage those three relationships extremely well. Frequent meetings, frequent updates, good news, bad news. I mean, rain or shine, you just consistent. I would say the advice I would give is to make sure to do that scheduled and consistently. Every week have some kind of updates, some kind of meeting, some kind of communication, and then keep records of it.
That's great. Yeah, I know communication is key for everything. And I know there's a lot of brokers on the call, so they understand that better than anyone. That if your client is abreast of what's going on and you're constantly communicating with them, if something were to happen that's negative, it's going to be a less of a blow than if you talk to them once and then a month and a half later you say, oh, by the way, now things are not where they need to be. So constant communication is key, regardless of what business you're taking on. So you had kind of mentioned, the three partners involved. So that's the lender, obviously your partners, and then the GC. So, as you're going through the process, let's say in this instance, you had raised some of the money, you found the opportunity, you put it under contract, you go through your due diligence process of acquiring the property. What are some of those things that, you're looking at as you're going through to confirm that what you assume to be the case is actually, going to potentially work out? Or is
Right.
the due diligence process pretty streamlined?
Well, nothing is streamlined development. I mean, you're talking about construction. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. There's going to be shocks and surprises. There's just going to be all kinds of things going on.
Mhm.
So, part of the process usually, it's usually started with the GC. The GC will provide some kind of a schedule, and that schedule is going to change. I don't care what anybody says. Things are just not going to be installed on a timely basis. There'll be supply issues. There'll be what have you. There'll be always delays or something that happens. And that's the nature, no matter how great your contractor is. But it usually starts with that schedule. And we try to stick to that schedule as closely as possible. Now, if you are a developer that has a tremendous amount of experience and you're buttoned up and it's a professional, repeatable type business, you'll have a pretty good idea. Usually a development company will have a site supervisor. They'll have their own kind of engineer on staff or someone who can really hold that GC accountable. They can go through, they can check the boxes and go through each one. Now there's a deep dive, and not to make it too complex, there's a deep dive on each category as mentioned. So it's not just a general contractor. It's going to be the engineers, the MEP. It's going to be the architect as well. Sometimes the architect is in-house, but generally it's going to be a schedule that the GC uses that is followed for the entire construction.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So as far as, holding that accountability, because, as someone, I have, to be for the audience, I haven't taken on a development project yet. I know Will and I have talked on several occasions. That's one of the things I'd like to start getting into in some capacity, taking on a small redevelopment project of my own. And I imagine that, as you're, you purchase the property and now you're going through the actual development process, what are some of the, the things you need to consider as you're in the midst of the hellfire, as they say?
Well, the really starts. So you mentioned a good question is how to hold these parties accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And that the question is, if you have a general contractor, and how do you kind of reduce the risk or keep them on task or whatnot. So before anything happens, it starts with a really good contract. That's the number one thing you must have. And I strongly encourage you to have an attorney review the contract line by line before anything. That's going to dictate the entire terms of the deal. So if you have a very good contract and you understand the contract and you agree on each point, that's going to be that is the only way to really hold everyone accountable. And that's, to include the owner as well, and the architect. Construction contracts are pretty complicated. We're used to commercial real estate. They can get lengthy, but they're pretty much standard, usually all the points. But construction, it's a very complicated document if you're doing it right, if you ask me.
Yeah, for sure, because you have to factor in, potential delays, and I'm sure there's different things you have to include in the contract to make sure the contractor's covered. And I'm sure that, like you said, the assurances that are given at the beginning may or may not, come to fruition because of a variety of different factors. So all those variables have to be addressed within the document that you ultimately sign as the owner. And so, you had mentioned, I don't know if you're open to sharing that, but that there are other parties too that you could potentially work with that have the experience in construction that operate as kind of like an intermediary, like an owner's rep, for example. So I don't know if that's something you would be open, like, would you encourage people to consider? Because quite frankly, I have very limited construction experience. So even if a contractor told me, oh, this is happening, like, for the most part, I'd be like, okay, yeah, there's just not quite this level. And again, I've learned a little bit over the course of my time in commercial real estate, but I'm no expert. So I don't know if you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, I can tell you what we I can give you some suggestions for the next project that I do. Is you're exactly right. So there's a couple of ways to do things. First, let me speak on this, is that if you hire a GC, the first question is, are they going to have in-house design? Are they going to have an architect with a stamp in-house? Or are you going to hire your own architect and they're to collaborate and cooperate with each other? That's the number one. That's the number one piece of, thing I'd bring up. There's benefits and drawbacks to both. If it's in-house, maybe they're going to over-design it. They can resolve problems, issues. I don't know. If you have your own architect, you might be able to hold them accountable. And also, it depends on how the contract is written. The architect might have a final say versus a GC. But to go back to your original question is, can you hire someone to kind of be in your corner, to kind of advocate for you? And yes, you can. You absolutely can. You can hire a construction management consultant. And that can be in the form of like a site supervisor, and you pay them, or it can be an entire consultant that can go through and hold the GC accountable and just basically go down the line, and they can look at timelines. They can look at jobs that need to be done, and they have their own, I don't even know how to articulate it, but they have their own industry vernacular that they know that they can use to apply pressure. And a very, very big challenge that will come up with almost any construction project is going to be a change order. A change order is a dirty word around our house and when we talk to each other, and it's usually associated with a lot of groans and heartburn, but it doesn't have to be. But I think that the number one piece of advice I would give you is to have that site supervisor or a consultant or advisor to do exactly what you just said. It will hold the GC accountable.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned change orders. For those of you guys who are listening, I mean, you may or may not know what change orders are, but in the case where you start a project, you have everything kind of outlined as to what you need done. And then as you start getting into the project, things may change, right? You may decide, oh, I want to move this over here for whatever reason, or maybe it's not going to be as functional in this arena, or maybe the material that's needed is going to need to change for a variety of different reasons, maybe from an engineering standpoint or whatever. So that is when change orders start coming up. And if things aren't planned properly on the front end, there's a higher probability of change orders coming down the line. So, obviously mitigating that is something that is important if you're taking on development projects, because it can add 10, 20% to your bottom, to the cost. So
change order. So for a ground up construction or an adaptive reuse where we just retrofit, we took an old building and we created a new interior design to it, that either one has change orders. So there are things that are almost impossible to avoid, like asbestos tiles. Our contractor went in, they started demolition, and they found, asbestos tiles. They had to stop. We didn't factor it in. And of course, you have to hire a firm to specially handle that, which we did. It was an added cost. That's a change order. That's an example of one.
Definitely. No, for sure. So, obviously, all the things we've talked about thus far, it's a lot. So there's a lot of moving parts as you're going through the development project. Obviously, there's a lot of obstacles that you potentially could face during taking on these projects. We had talked about some of the projects you've been involved in. I imagine that I would have a lot of heartburn as for some of these things. I'm sure you have more gray hairs as a result of some of the things you've had to go through. But talk a little bit about emotional regulation when it comes to these projects, because I came, and we talked about this offline, but I came from an engineering background. I was in software consulting for many years, and, we had a high pressure environment, but, as far as the payment was concerned, I always knew that I was going to get this salary and I was going to be able to make my mortgage payment or whatever else. But then you switch to something like a brokerage career where you don't know, you may very well not make any money for several months. And I can't tell you how many times I've, sat awake and I'm just like, oh my gosh, if I don't make any money in the next 2 months, I mean, maybe I can't make my mortgage payment. I mean, that's kind of the situation that we found ourselves in the brokerage side. So, if you could talk a little bit about that, I think that'd be helpful, because, it's not all the quote unquote sexy, oh yeah, new skyscraper, you're going to be making a ton of money. There's definitely points along the journey that, that test your mettle a bit.
Absolutely. And I think that's the only thing I can really provide that's of great value here. And it's something what I call emotional management. You're exactly right. And I call it emotional management because I've never read about it anywhere. It's not like a manly thing to talk about. But I'm going to touchy feely, but you do to do these deals, to do any deal, even in brokerage, you have to have an emotional management system in place, and you got to know kind of how you feel about it. And that is, there's plenty of nights that I'd lay awake at night and think, how are we going to do this? Or I could go on about that. But so the lifespan of development project when you're newer is usually it starts out with everyone very excited. There's people doing renderings. There are drawings. There's a lot of talk, fingers pointing up at buildings and guys elbowing each other, talking about how, how amazing the project's going to be. And for the first few months, it's pretty fun. You haven't really encountered a lot of problems yet. Everything's going according to plan. The problem is that as an issue comes up, resolving that issue, it's not so much fun. And you have to have that resolve and that vision to really push through, resolve those issues, and keep everybody online. So there's a lot of cheerleading with it as well. So that's what I call emotional management. Is there's a lot of opportunity for leadership where, the group would look at me or my business partner, and we had to do the heavy lifting. It was us. I can't point to someone else and have them do it. We have to just buckle down and figure out how to fix this thing. And we had to do that repeatedly. And sometimes we still are. But the emotional management is just knowing that you have to have the confidence to know that the project will work. But again, you really have to have that vision. You got to really believe in your project. It can't be something that you just kind of think about. And I think if you have enough resolve, if you have enough conviction, you can carry it through. But yeah, I call it emotional management.
Yeah, I know. And I think it's important to talk about because, obviously, you see all these videos about people saying they're doing these big and great things, but anytime you take on something of that scale, there's going to be obstacles, especially if you've never done it before. So from a newbie developer perspective, and I'm sure at some point I'll be able to go through this experience and provide my own, context to that. But from my understanding, what you're saying is that, having all the pieces in place, getting the project started, that's all a very exciting process. Everyone likes that's what you like to see. You're like, oh yeah, this is what's gonna, essentially give us the opportunity to build something. But then you're really gonna you don't really call yourself a true developer until you go through these lulls in the project where, you find a problem with the construction, or maybe the sewer line's not big enough and now you have to expand it, or maybe there's something else that happens that causes issues that were unforeseen, or maybe you have to call your capital partners and say, hey guys, like we underestimated what this was cost, we need more money to make this project work. Like, I mean, that's the type of stuff that people don't talk about, but in reality, that's what you're going to have to take on is in some of these situations. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely. You got to power through it. And now it's worth it. It's definitely worth it in the end. I mean, there is a lot of pride and it's like, wow, man, we did this. This is amazing. But then you got to stabilize it. That's another story. But I like to say, well, okay, we built the race car. Now we got to put the race car on the track and we got to get it stabilized. And that's really, getting the revenue in from the new product, getting it leased. That's another story, but it's absolutely worth it. It is a process. It is a journey. There's a lot of learning. And yeah, I mean, as far as that emotional management goes, I mean, there's a lot of times I told you this, before we got on, is like, I feel like I hack sometimes, like an imposter, but I think that's common in the business. But yeah, it's definitely worth it in the end.
No, for sure. So you talked about, obviously getting through the project, you've finished the development, and now the asset management piece comes into play. Now, obviously everything looks good in a spreadsheet before you take it on, and the projections after you get the product completed, you have to execute that. That's a business plan, right? And it requires a lot of processes and systems in place to ensure that you're able to stick to the timeline that you set for yourself to lease up the property and stabilize it. So if you could talk a little bit about the asset management piece, whatever insights you'd be willing to share, I think that'd be awesome.
So definitely, again, a lot of shops, they might have different sets of people do these things. And, our shop is not, we do everything. We're very small. So as you finish the project, the next part of it is stabilizing, and that's leasing it out, pre-leasing, promoting the actual property. And that takes time. It's very rare that you just have a tenant move in unless it's planned beforehand. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a whole nother chapter. There's the construction side of it, and then you have the stabilization side, and then stabilization / management after that. So it's pretty much straightforward. Is you're finding tenants, you're getting them to lease, you're signing agreements, and then at that point you're making adjustments to the property, or you're bringing property management on, and then there's always little tweaks to be made. It's new construction, but there's still things that don't work. A dishwasher's broken, or a part's being overused, or an elevator car needs to be rebuilt, or security needs to be upgraded. I mean, there's just a litany of small little things, but it's pretty much done. And that's easier than the actual construction concept itself.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I know. And obviously some of the things that I've seen, you guys do and other developers do is that as the project is getting to a point where it's starting to be complete, potentially 6 months or whatever down the road, you could begin advertising and kind of getting some lead time when it comes to identifying tenants, as long as you divulge to them that, that the project is set to be completed on this date, and you work through, because you're going to need time to work through all the legal matters as far as leasing and everything else as well. So, it would behoove you to, get some lead time when it comes to that sort of thing too.
It does. And a lot of it too is not very glamorous. It's, is making sure the cleaning crew is hitting the right spots, window wash, carpet cleaning, just making sure the place looks really, really good. That's the not so glamorous side, but you're right. Yeah. Leasing, promoting, getting the word out, letting people know. Some people have it down really well. They have it down to a science. They do big spreads and, Business First or a local business periodical, or, but yeah, the promotion side is very important.
That's awesome. Well, cool. So one thing I'll ask before we open up to Q&A, because there's already a couple questions in the comments that I think would be beneficial to have you answer. But what are some of the best resources that you found to kind of learn more about this? So if someone were an aspiring developer, or they're maybe an existing developer trying to improve their skills, or maybe they're brokers working with developers, and they just want to be able to kind of better represent their clients, what type of advice, or maybe even resources would you say would be most appropriate?
Sure. So a lot of people ask me, like what book or whatnot, and or is there a person? And I'm not quite like that. I don't think there is one single book that can encapsulate all that goes into it. So what I do is I will actually I do a lot of cyber stalking, man. Like, I'll get on Google and I'll find someone in different cities, and I'll find a developer. And if you read enough about that person, that's available on the web, you can kind of figure out what he or she is doing to develop a building. Like, you can really figure out. And if you go and you look at their product, if you look at their websites, so I'll take a profile of something I want to do, a project I want to do, and then I'll just go backwards, and then I'll look up public record and really try to reverse engineer and see how they penciled it out. I've done that numerous times. It's really paid off well. Sometimes just calling up people, asking for advice. And, but it's not just one, it has to be multiple. I'm almost get to the point where, I'll probably do this. If I find a project, I'll look at it and I'll find 20 or 30 target projects. And after that happens, it kind of builds a trend line, a story. You can kind of see how it works and where it starts and stops. So a lot of research on Google and YouTube.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know Will's awesome. He's commented on a couple of our videos, so I appreciate you watching.
And you put some. I have to follow, like, who'd you have last week? Kyle Matthews or someone like. Just absolute amazing superstar. So they're great interviews. So yeah, I mean, I've used yours many times, many of your interviews.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So, well, what we'll go ahead and do is we'll go ahead and open up to Q&A. We are live on LinkedIn as well. So for those of you guys who are watching on LinkedIn, feel free to type away in the chat box. I'll get to them as well. And if you guys are on the Zoom call, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them away and we'll get them answered for you. So Omer, he asks, construction contracts are special types of contracts. You need specialized contract manager or a lawyer. That's perfect. Yep, that's exactly right. Refer to FDIC Red Book for more information about this subject. Oh, FIDIC. I'm sorry.
Red yeah. Yeah, I was going to say FDIC, but yeah.
Yeah. So what is the FIDIC by chance?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I've never heard of that. Now, the AIA is the standard contract that is often used, and it's the Architects, I think, International Association. That's kind of a template form that a lot of construction contracts are drawn from. I've used both. We used an AIA on our big project, and for tenant improvement construction, because I'll do construction projects as well where I'll just manage them, but those are just kind of they're smaller projects, we won't. But yeah,
For sure.
Eh.
That's awesome. So we had a question. This is a great question, by the way. I think it's important for us to talk about. So Malia asks, could you advise more points on how to navigate the political elements needed for project approval and sign off?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You're at the mercy of the local municipality, and that's a great topic. I don't think anyone really has the answer. We did this during COVID, was our big project, and that was a nightmare. I mean, I learned all kinds of new ways of profanity and whatnot. Just I don't really know. I would say educate yourself on the people that are making the decisions, and find someone who knows someone in that office. Nothing underhanded, of course, just someone who's familiar, who might have a relationship or a contact. That's what I would do.
Great question. A great point. And obviously, if you're taking your experience is in the adaptive reuse side. So, on the ground up construction, I mean, there's even, potential rezoning implications. So there may be neighborhood input as far as, and again, this is all based on different municipalities, because your municipality may be different than, our municipality. I'm almost confident it is, so.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So we have, we both have a very good friend has a ground up development project. That's going to absolutely, I mean, you're talking about not only like historic overlays or approvals and permitting. Now you're talking about like soil conditions. As you get closer to the river, where I'm thinking about on Main Street, there's sandy soil. There's different drainage issue. I mean, yeah, that's a whole different thing. There's sewer taps that have to be created. There's electrical. A ground up construction project is entirely different and more lengthy in time.
Definitely. Yeah. Retention, water retention. We have a client that's looking at some land, and we have to figure out how the heck, it's going to, how you're going to lay it so that it allows for that or checks that box. All right. So another comment was, normally developers retain about 5% of the construction cost, and usually it's the last payment for the general contractor for about 140 days for maintenance.
That's true. I mean, we're in the state of Kentucky, so Kentucky state law. Actually, that's another good place to study. I like to study the actual. So when I say for my broker's exam, I didn't use the book. I went right to the actual state law. Same for construction. Each state has their own laws, and you can read the statutes directly. A lot of the statutes are written like at an 8th grade level. So that's what I would do, is start there, because that will talk about retention. It might talk about retention, but that's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
Good point. All right, so we got a few comments on LinkedIn. So Barrett's tuned in. Say, hey, Barrett.
Barrett Goff.
He says great things about you. He says you're brilliant and has a great understanding of real estate as a whole. So
yeah, about that.
Yeah, no, Barrett's a good guy. So
he is. He's a project on Main Street. So
yeah, he's the one we were referencing regarding the project on Main Street. So I'm sure hopefully in the next year and change, it'll be ground up at this point. So he's moving forward.
Main Street, how do you go wrong with an address on Main Street?
No, yeah, and Louisville's very interesting, obviously, because there's just so much growth in that corridor. It's kind of crazy. I mean, literally from 2 years ago to today, it's amazing. But I'm sure that's happening all across the country in its own pockets around different cities. But
these urban, people are coming back, and I think that the city leadership loves it because it's not urban sprawl. It increases their tax base downtown. I mean, provides jobs. The list goes on. And we have a little vacant parcel in Nulu, and eventually one day I'll develop that as well. But it'll be a while. So
I'm sure. Well, cool, man. So we have another gentleman who says that he may have meant to say construction plans. It says COKP plans are standard. Does that ring a bell? Like an acronym? It may be a typo. I'm not sure, but he said incentives will be based on revenues your project brings the city. So
yeah, absolutely. So that is a whole. My business partner is probably far more well versed in that than I am, but that's a whole nother category. There's tax incentives. There's historic tax credits. That can make or break a project, really. I mean, there's people that work on development teams. That's all they do, and they know about grant writing and Yeah, that absolutely, especially for urban core projects where they're older and more historical. Good
Yeah.
point. That's a good point.
Absolutely, because that's another thing too with some of these historical areas and overlays that have stricter requirements when it comes to materials you use and types of contractors that have to do the work and everything. It can become very expensive. So obviously being able to leverage the programs that are offered by these different state and federal bureaus, obviously that can make or break a project. I know there's a big project happening downtown with the Dream Hotel. They're looking for like 100 million in TIF or something like that. So
That's going to bring so much to the area. Yeah, that's, man, I can't wait for that. That part of town too.
oh
What a
yeah,
great,
yeah, I know, of course. So Harrison is on the call. Hey man, he's with he's a agent at our office. He asked, what do you think about the Fifth Third building selling for $9 million and the Hayburn building being for sale for 7.5? Would these be better utilized as multifamily or mixed use projects?
I think we're going to see a lot more of that, especially in the CBD, where these dense office. I mean, I hear people saying both things about office. Look, it's a troubled asset class, and everyone knows. So I think we're going to be more, a candidate building for a conversion like what we did. You have to make sure there's a few boxes that you got to check off to make sure they're good criteria. It's the whole fire alarm system. There is the vertical penetrations with the hotel, with the elevator. There is, if you want to have mixed use like hotel, Airbnb, there's a lot to consider for a good candidate. Not every office building will make a good candidate to become multifamily or residential.
I can imagine. I mean, in plumbing too, I can only imagine like that. That's one thing that I've been kind of interested about the redevelopment of some of these projects is like, how do you, because you'd have to separate all the electrical and plumbing. And I mean, it just becomes a very expensive, project. So, I mean, that's why, I mean, you almost have to get it at such a low basis to be able to make it
Oh, you got
pencil
without a
out.
doubt be a home run purchase price because you nailed it. You said it exactly. Is that there's a whole different schematic. There's a whole different configuration of the HVAC. That climate control is going from zoning an entire office floor and being adjusted with dampers to now you have individual climate. I mean that's probably one of our largest expenses was HVAC and electrical.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's probably amplified if you're going to individually have to meter, or maybe you decide not to individually meter because it becomes too cost prohibitive. But I mean, being able to like separate, if you have if you decide to make, 70 apartments or 80 apartments, I mean, you've got individual units that have to have temperature control and, all these other things. So, it does make it very costly. But that $9 million purchase price is put into context. I mean, this thing was bought in like 2002 for like 32 million and it traded at $24 a square foot, which, I mean, again, that's like the average. Historically, it's been the average rent for an office property downtown. So it's kind of crazy to see. And like you said, I think there will be more of that happening across the country. You're already kind of seeing it. I was reading an article the other day about like office property, purchase prices down like 30 to 40% already. So
Yeah, well, I think again we're going to see a lot more of that, and for Louisville, Kentucky too, even pre-COVID, vacancy wasn't. I don't remember exactly where it was, but it wasn't exactly where we wanted it. And I think cost, lease per square foot, it definitely wasn't on the high side. So this is a kind of a blow. I think we're definitely gonna see more of it. But there's a lot going on, and the question is, a question I get is, can bourbon save the city? Can we just convert all these offices into multifamily? I don't have the answer, but I do know that tourism is up tremendously and the daytime population is down. And of course, this as well.
Yeah. And again, we're talking about our local market, Louisville. There's going to be different economic drivers if you're in Dallas or New York or, Atlanta or LA, really anywhere you're located. So,
Or
it's
Nashville. What a powerhouse.
Nashville. Yeah. Nashville is crazy. I mean, it's unbelievable the growth that they're experiencing. I was down there for a bachelor party relatively recently. And well, actually what am I talking about? It was my bachelor party. and in what do you call it? It
Great.
was like last year. See, time's flying, so it's kind of hard to put things into context. So I was down there, and literally the amount of cranes that are in the air is just unbelievable. At one point during COVID, they said that like it was some absurd percentage of all the cranes in the country were located in Nashville.
Yeah. And that's true. I don't know other parts of the country have a business first. I think every city does, but I think they have a space where you can find what's going on with developments. Great. I mean, great place to learn about, hey, where's hot? What's happening? And I mean, it's all public. You can just look up in the sky. I mean, you can physically see the path of progress. And that's a special phrase I use. I mean, I didn't coin it, but you want to see where the path is, and you want to gravitate towards that.
Absolutely. And that's where I think the benefit of being on the ground is, because you physically can see it. The path of progress is physically able to be seen. Like, how many times have you driven down a road and you start seeing, oh, there's a flipped house here. Oh, there's a flipped house here. Oh, there's like a new coffee shop on the corner over here. Like, that's the physical manifestation of the path of progress manifesting. So, if you're like, okay, well, obviously there's physical barriers that could be kind of a block for the path of progress. And so you kind of look around and say, okay, what's the next logical place where development dollars have to go once this already gets developed? And so I know we've talked about it on several occasions.
Mhm.
We believe the path of progress is going to be over the next 5 years here in our local market. And I'm sure, for all you guys who are tuning in from across the country, I'm sure you can also kind of get an idea of it just by driving your market and getting a feel for what's happening. So
I like to, my big thing is I always like to, if it's walkable. I
yes.
know it's really hot. If I see people out walking in the evening, I know there's great real estate. And then the bonus is if they have like a little table, like a little umbrella, just something like a restaurant. If you have that, it's a home run. I mean, that's going to be a highly walkable area. It used to be like, you look on a map, where's the Starbucks, right? Like, oh, it must be hot. Just people walking around.
Yeah, that's there's a book called Walkable City. Phenomenal book if you get a chance to read it. Worth checking out. It's a city planning book. The center planner talks about it. One of my best friends, well, not one of my best friends, one of my fraternity brothers from college. He was studied city planning and got into development. Now he's a development he's a development manager at a quick service restaurant in Phoenix. It's called Salads to Go. But he was one who recommended me that book. It was great. Harrison had another comment. He said, I get the feeling that the normal high net worth investors will get the chance to invest in Class A properties for the first time in a decade. With all these hedge funds having property foreclosed on, I think we are coming on to the best time to invest since the housing crisis. It could very well be the case. I mean, I think, an indication of what's to come. You can kind of see it on a grander level with, what Blackstone's doing. They've raised one of the largest funds to start to try to capitalize on some of these properties that they think are going to be coming available. So, they have, I think, 30 billion already raised. I don't know if I think they just closed out at 30 billion. So, they obviously think that there's going to be an opportunity to buy. Now, obviously, what property type that's going to be, again, remains to be seen. I think the most evident is obviously office, but I think you're going to see a lot of cracks in multifamily too, just because of, the amount of dollars that have been going into the property type. And there's been a lot of, in my opinion, speculative, investment dollars going after these types of properties with the assumption that rents are going to continue to increase at 10 to 12% a year, which is just not feasible.
And it also depends. I think there's a heavily dependence too. I mean, I have seen just an explosion of a number of people that are putting together these syndication deals. And
Absolutely.
I think in Houston, I think a couple of weeks ago, there was a large
3,200 units. Yeah.
Yeah, like $230 million. And, there was some talk about, there were some questions about the group that operated it, how seasoned were they? So there's a very good possibility. And I see this on LinkedIn all the time. I come from the securities background, very regulated by FINRA. At the time, it was called something else, but FINRA, you have to be extremely careful about how you advertise returns. And a lot of times, even on LinkedIn, I'll see these syndication groups say, hey, guaranteed 12% return, 15% return. How do they sustain that? I don't know. Now, maybe they're doing something I don't understand, but I'm not sure how they're doing it. So I think we're going to see a lot of it, but also the operators giving the properties back to the bank or whatever. I think we're going to see a lot of that.
For sure. Well, I just created a coin, so if you guys want to get 1,000% return in 1 year, I'm just kidding. I invented a digital coin. So there you go. That's going to be another one too. I mean, you already kind of seen the fallout of all that stuff. I mean, I just remember all these like NFTs coming available and people paying absurd amount of money for it. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is not going to end well.
But it made me pretty cranky because I'm from like a economic point of view. I'm like, how are they doing that? So I want to ride that.
You should ride the wave. You got to ride the wave. Oh man.
But anyways,
Oh, that's good. I appreciate that. I appreciate your context on that. So,
man,
looking,
keep it real and try to be very just transparent, and humble. That's my thing, man.
yeah, and I think you have to, because I feel like, again, we all struggle with stuff. I mean, life isn't perfect, so you got to kind of share the warts and all when it comes to these types of projects, because all you get is the filtered stuff online. So I think it's important to have this type of discussion. I do appreciate you be willing to do this. And for those guys who don't know Will, like he knows his stuff. Like, and then obviously I've known him a little while now, and I can attest to the fact that he knows his stuff, and he's a constant learner. So even if you're faced with an obstacle, you're like, well, let me figure out a way to get through that, and ultimately that sharpens the axe, as they say. So,
thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, comment was HVAC amounts to 18 to 30% of the total project costs in a new build developments. If not closely monitored, HVAC can become a source of draining costs. So
yes,
yeah.
And now I understand that, but this is a very good thing. You're exactly right. Whoever posts that comment is doing their homework. But there's a road. There are two roads. There's the road of theory and then the road of reality, and that intersects. And you can only make decisions based on what people tell you. So if a professional tells you, hey, your HVAC is going to be 18. Well, what happens if they open up the building and they say, well, wait a minute, we'd have to do a lot of core drilling. We didn't factor that in. We got to reroute this ductwork. So then it very easily could be 25%. And again, that's where your contract is going to help out quite a bit, because that contract will determine who bears the cost of that. And of course, you want, as the developer, I mean, I'm not a vendor. If I were a vendor, I'd look at it differently. But as a contractor, you want to offload that responsibility as much to your vendors as you can, or your contractors. So yes, you're exactly right, but keep in mind that there's reality too.
Definitely. Great advice. All right, so I think we're almost done as far as questions are concerned. It looks like everyone got a chance to share some insights. One thing is, before we wrap up and everything, I just wanted to kind of give you an opportunity. Is there like one piece of advice that you think that we haven't asked, or I have a question I haven't asked, or anything that you think would be of value to the aspiring developers or brokers that are representing developers?
No, I will be emphatic on one point though, is you just have to verify, and follow up. That is, and that's true of anything in life, really, in business. But look at the answer. Don't take any one person's word for it. Cross-check from a variety of sources. And it's up to you. When you're a developer, it's up to you and no one else, because people, if it goes sideways, they're going to look at you and say, well, wait a minute, how did this happen? So you got to really determine what the truth is. And that's not easy to do, because when you're a developer and you got a lot of money from the bank, a lot of people are going to be telling you everything that you want to hear. And you have to have that confidence, but you have to discern what the truth is. And, I've learned a lot of lessons as well on that. So, verify and follow up.
That's great. That's great advice, man. Really. So, well, Will, greatly appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and I appreciate you kind of taking some time out of your day to share some insights with the group. As far as if people wanted to get in contact with you to maybe ask you questions, or learn more about different things that are happening in the local market, what's the best way to do that?
I mean, email, phone. I answer my phone. I get phone calls from everybody. So phone call, email, if you want to put in the show notes, or I can provide it, whatever.
Yeah, if you want to provide it, I'll go ahead and include it in the show notes so everyone can access it as well.
I mean, like I told you, I'm an open book. I bet you I'm probably the most transparent person that you'll meet. Like there's really it's just all hard work really is when it
Mhm.
comes down to it. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, all that, but yeah, I'll put it in the show notes.
Twitter, there's a big Twitter community popping up for commercial real
Man,
estate. It's
dude,
crazy.
have you that? I think it was like about 2 months ago it started hitting and I just started riding the wave. I had no idea, but yeah, I mean, you've got not to promote the guy, but strip mall guy. There's some
Mhm.
real big superstars on. I've learned a tremendous amount, man, just off of Twitter.
Yeah, no, Twitter's a great tool. I never used Twitter before. And then I just kind of talked to you and a few other people that are in the commercial real estate space talking about how Twitter has really blown up as of late when it comes to the commercial real estate arena. So I just recently joined and I've been following along. So, I pretty much follow all commercial real estate people, but it's
Well, I've
definitely been a good platform.
discovered it, and I mean, I'm sure other people have sent them DMs and whatnot, but I did one to Barry Wolf and then Beth Azor, her as
Yeah.
well, and I saw them kind of discover it and say, hey, wow, this is great recently. Yeah, this is fantastic. So
Yeah, we've had Beth and Barry both on the show. So
fantastic. Yeah, those are legends, man.
oh, they
Fantastic.
are. Yeah, we had Beth. Shoot, we had her on both this one and the other podcast. No, she's amazing, and so is
Man,
Barry. They're
I'm not
both.
saying there are many, many, many times that because I don't work for. I mean, I have my own shop, right?
Mhm.
And I have ducked in a hallway when someone ask me a question, and I've gotten on Twitter or YouTube, like, how do they do this? And I'll look it up, like, oh, that's what it's about. So these are you can make an entire career learning just off of YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google. I mean, you don't need to have that traditional mentor, so to speak. You can actually do. I mean, I did.
Mhm.
So,
Well, and there's a lot more of that out there now because even back when I joined in the business back in mid 2019, I mean, there really wasn't as much as there is now. I feel like there's a lot more people out there that are willing to share their knowledge and the what used to be a somewhat opaque industry, commercial real estate and finance tend to be those two industries that are really, kind of, keep everything close to the vest. I feel like there's a lot more, people out there now that are being a lot more giving as far as information and content. So we just appreciate you being one of those individuals. And obviously, for those of you guys who are tuning in and listening, feel free to reach out to Will. He really is an open book. And, we have conversations about development relatively regularly, and we run in the same circle. So I'm honored to call you a friend.
anytime. Thank you, Raphael. Appreciate it.
Of course. Well, thanks again so much for tuning in, guys. We obviously appreciate all the support. Come back every other month. We do appreciate you guys, or every other week, I should say. We have host speakers to talk about a variety of different topics. If you guys are going to be listening to this either on YouTube, like and subscribe. It really does make an impact. And then also on the podcasting front, feel free to leave a 5-star review. It makes it so that we can reach a broader audience. So thanks again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks.
See you guys.